Catcher in the Rye by J.D. Salinger is a teen classic for a reason. It covers a lot of themes that are still relevant to teens today, even though this book is much older. Holden Caulfield is famously very sarcastic and disillusioned with the adults and fellow teens around him. He's very concerned with phoniness. He's trying to figure out who he is, what his place is in the world, and maybe his sexuality along the way. However, as a teen librarian, there are at least 4 books that are not Catcher in the Rye that I would like to see in classrooms. My name is Yona, I'm a librarian at Field Teen Center, and today I'm going to tell you what those 4 books are and why. Although Catcher in the Rye does have these very teenage themes and a teenage protagonist, this book isn't necessarily the most accessible or enjoyable or most relevant way to get those themes for teens today. For one, teens very understandably want to read books about people like themselves. And for many, that isn't upper middle class, private school, white Holden Caulfield. And it's definitely not my favorite coming of age story. Plus, Holden isn't really the role model that I would offer teens. He's so emotionally stunted. And I think we can offer them better while still being relatable and interesting. This is, of course, just my opinion because literary value is very subjective, but I bet I can convince you about these 4 titles. First of all is Mexican White Boy by Matt de la Peña, which is one of my favorite books. It's about 2 boys who become friends over their shared love of baseball. I'm not even a baseball girly or a sports girly at all, and I still really liked this book. The main characters are 2 mixed race, half Mexican teens. Danny is half white and half Mexican and is so full of anxiety that he can't even talk out loud. Definitely not in English and definitely not in Spanish, which he feels bad for not being able to speak like some of his relatives can. The other protagonist is Uno, who is half Mexican and half black and faces prejudice for his race. Both of these boys have absent dads for various reasons that the story explores in a lot of depth, so they become a support system for each other instead. The story also does a really nice job of exploring race and class and the expectations that it puts on both of these characters. The characters are also funny with really realistic dialogue, and they get themselves into some dicey situations that will have any reader engaged. For me, this book is a 10 out of 10. The next book on my list is Patron Saints of Nothing by Randy Rebay, a book that made me cry twice. Like Holden Caulfield, the protagonist of Patron Saints of Nothing is dealing with the death of a family member, though in this book it's his cousin. Unlike Holden, he makes some dramatic choices to try to make sense of it and find out what is true and what's phony. The narrative that's being presented to the family by the police is that his cousin was doing drugs, which is illegal in the Philippines where he lived, and was executed by police because of this. And the protagonist can't believe that his cousin would possibly be in that situation. It doesn't sound like him, doesn't feel fair or right, so he goes to the Philippines and tries to find out firsthand what happened. And much like the characters in the last book I talked about, Mexican White Boy, the protagonist in Patron Saints of Nothing is kind of caught between several identities and how he sees himself versus the expectations that other people have for him, because he is both American and Filipino. When he's in the United States, he's told that he's not American enough, and in the Philippines, he's told he's not Filipino enough. This book makes a coming-of-age story about disillusionment and the search for the truth and adventure. Once again, 10 out of 10, please read this book. The next book on this list is a book I wish I could make every single teenage boy read, and that is Not So Pure and Simple by Lamar Giles, in which a local boy starts giving sex and relationship advice to his peers because he's the only one in their church who has managed to skate through and take the school's sex ed class, which is very much banned by their church. And it's all part of a half-baked scheme to get together with this girl that he's liked for a really long time, who has just joined the church's purity pledge and convinced him that he should too. This book explores and updates a lot of the same themes we see in Catcher in the Rye, grappling directly with religion, truth, the failings of adults, and we take it a step further because he also has to confront his own hypocrisy as he starts to realize that he is a classic nice guy with a lot of entitled feelings about women and what they owe him for being so nice. And because this is Lamar Giles, we have a rich cast of fully fleshed out characters who are funny and engaging. I couldn't put this book down, and it's one of my favorite books that I read in the past year. Last but not least, I humbly suggest The Cartographers by Amy Zhang. It's about a teenage girl named Ocean who, unlike Holden, has not been kicked out of her school, but she's not going to school either. She's taking a gap year between high school and college, and she hasn't told her mother about it. Instead, she's living in New York on her own, disassociating, really spiraling, and having a hard time getting a good grasp on her depression and anxiety. Her mom has really high expectations for her academic achievement, and it echoes the struggles that Holden has with his own school. In The Cartographers, Ocean even meets a boy who has very strong Holden Caulfield energy, and it ends up being the worst thing for her because it causes her to question herself and spiral even more. Part of what I like so much about this book is that although it explores in a lot of depth the realities of being an anxious, depressed teen, Ocean manages to save herself, pull herself out of this spiral, and start moving toward healing. And we also see her finding new relationships with her friends and roommates. This is just a small sampling of coming-of-age stories written for teens that have come out in the past few years. They're some of my favorites, and I hope you'll give them a try, but I would also love to see your suggestions for other great coming-of-age stories that could be brought into the classroom instead of an older, outdated book without diverse representation like Catcher in the Rye. And if you're looking for more book recommendations or just want to chat with the teen librarian, get in touch with us. You can always DM us on Instagram, you can email us, and you can visit us in person at Field Teen Center. We're located on the ground floor of Parkway Central Library at 1901 Vine Street. And we ask that if you plan to bring in a class for a visit, shoot us an email first. For the most up-to-date information about our hours and any special events, be sure to check our website. Thanks so much for watching, and I hope you find something great to read.